security matters. It's the case when it comes to state security. As you've seen over the last couple of days, there have been these taking over the state security ministries and so on. So they're still in charge to a large extent.
Sultan Qaboos of Oman has ordered a major cabinet reshuffle after weeks of anti-government protests in the strategic Gulf state. State TV is reporting that the Sultan named several new ministers in key posts, including the person who oversees the economy. The move appears to be the latest in a string of concessions aimed at appeasing ongoing protests as people demand jobs and political reforms. Shia Muslims have been pushing for more rights in Bahrain in protests directed at the Sunni royal family. And in their latest demonstration, around 200 Shia protesters have been rallying outside the U.S. embassy, calling for Washington to stop backing the monarchy. Protesters have been camping at Manama's Pearl Roundabout since last month, but their stand has won only minor concessions. Zainab Al-Khawaja is a protest organizer in Manama. She says protesters want the U.S. to stop supporting the Bahraini government.
We want America not to get involved. We can overthrow this regime. We can. The people of Bahrain is strong, just like the people of Egypt. All we want is for America not to support the dictatorship in Bahrain. Because people here, they're going to have to sacrifice so much more if the Americans decide to support the regime.
Algeria's president is coming under more pressure this time from some 10,000 police officers. They've marched to the parliament demanding better pay and directing their anger at President Abdelaziz Bouteflika. A tenth of the entire auxiliary police force took part. The force works in rural areas. There have been riots in one of Yemen's biggest prisons. Police fired tear gas after inmates started chanting anti-government slogans. Officials are denying reports that some prisoners were injured. South Sudan's been hit by a spate of killings with more than 50 dead in 2 days. Southern soldiers are fighting two separate rebel groups in Jonglei and Upper Nile State. All sides have suffered casualties, and it's unclear how many civilians have died in the crossfire. Such violence continues to plague the south, which officially becomes a new country in July. Only 4 days ago, 33 people were killed in the disputed Abyei region. Pro-government forces in Somalia have taken control of a strategic town in the west of the country. An official says rebel Al-Shabaab fighters abandoned the town of Luq on Monday morning without putting up a fight. It's being presented as a victory for the new transitional government, which has now been in place for 100 days. The United States has promised more than $12 million in aid for refugees fleeing growing violence in Côte d'Ivoire. Opposition fighters have reportedly seized the town of Toulepleu, previously held by troops backing Gbagbo. Fighting between supporters of Laurent Gbagbo and those of his rival, Alassane Ouattara, is now the worst since the 2002 civil war. Mohamed Ado has more from the main city, Abidjan.
Ruling the streets of Abidjan, young men take matters into their own hands. Hundreds of them pouring into the streets, setting up roadblocks and searching drivers. They say they're here to help the police and army ensure that Laurent Gbagbo remains the president of their country. Their loyalty to the man is unshakable.
We shall die to protect Gbagbo, and we are doing this to defend the constitution of Côte d'Ivoire. Ouattara is going against the very constitution he voted for.
They take nothing to chance. Nothing misses their attention, and they don't mind who they upset.
I don't appreciate their attitude. I urge them to be polite as they go about what they're doing.
These young men say that their work on the streets has largely been successful and that they managed to nab a number of firearms destined for the rebels in the north. They are also understand instructions to ensure that the movement of UN personnel here in the capital is curtailed.
The UN forces have shown they are not impartial. They are biased. They are responsible for what is happening in Côte d'Ivoire. They have been arming and transporting rebels.
Conditions continue to worsen for civilians as the violence spirals. At least 200,000 people have been displaced, particularly from Abidjan, according to the United Nations. More than 360 people have also died since November. It's a toll that's bound to rise even higher if the current political crisis continues. Mohamed Ado, AlJazeera, Abidjan.
Meanwhile, President Laurent Gbagbo has issued a decree making the government the sole purchaser and exporter of cocoa. The country is the world's top producer of cocoa beans. Some private exporters are boycotting the industry in support of presidential rival Alassane Ouattara. As well as affecting global supplies, it's hit Gbagbo financially as he depends heavily on the trade. Now, it's been a year since much heralded elections in Iraq.
We failed miserably, all of us, in getting the country moving forward.
As the people voice their anger over the government's lack of progress, a top Iraqi politician tells AlJazeera why the people are right. And the lowest popularity numbers on record in Japan, why the Prime Minister is under so much pressure.
A story of a land that never stops from giving its children hidden treasures. We foster innovation and create bonds between people, between nations. Nurturing the land under a ceiling of durable love. Fulfilling every generation's needs and thrive to cherish them. We help building skills and are proudly part of building our nation. From the mysteries of the desert to the wide open seas, with never-ending stories to be told, creating bonds of life and preserving it. Capco, in just about everything.
The army has to prove they have no intention of keeping any remnants of the old regime.
Behind the headlines.
The earthquake happened over a year ago. Now you want to come back and help your fellow Haitians?
Is the inside story at this time on Al Jazeera.
Welcome back. A reminder of the latest on the Libyan uprising. Forces loyal to Libyan leader Muammar Gaddafi continue to strike back hard against rebel positions. Rebels are preparing for fresh fighting near the town of Bin Jawad, which was retaken by government forces on Sunday. US President Barack Obama says Washington and its allies are still considering a military response to the crisis in Libya. Gulf Arab leaders have called for a UN-enforced no-fly zone. Al Jazeera has learnt the British citizens released by Libyan rebels on Sunday were captured after an exchange of gunfire. 8 British nationals, including a diplomat and SAS members, were captured soon after they landed in eastern Libya. Well, the incident has been a big embarrassment for the British government. Al Jazeera's Alan Fisher has more on the fallout in London.
Arriving back in Malta, the failed British Special Forces mission to Libya. In the UK Parliament, the Foreign Minister said it was all a misunderstanding.
Last week, I authorised the dispatch of a small British diplomatic team to eastern Libya in uncertain circumstances which we judge required their protection.